think practice went on. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll get started in about 70 seconds. I appreciate, sorry for the delay. But trust me, tonight's meeting will be well worth it. Mrs. Airy. Four. Okay.
Don't you feel safe tonight?
My left side does. My right, not so much. Nothing personal. All right. Who did this? Where's my...
John again.
Sorry. I usually have my Thor hammer I bang to start the night, and okay, this is that. All right.
I know nothing.
Okay, you know, I'm going to go with it. It's improv. I'd like to thank everyone for being out here tonight. Appreciate you doing that. I will now start the meeting. Sounds the same. All right. First, we're going to start off, if you'll join me for about 30-second moment of silence. We'll all stand, kind of gather our thoughts, and then we're going to have Boy Scout Troop 229 to do our Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. Love it when the scouts are here. You'll appreciate this when you're much younger. I just got called to be a cub master for our troop, so the minds of young men are now in my hands. So be glad you're older. So I love this. My third tour of duty with scouts, and I love it. So thank you for being here, gentlemen. We admire what you do. All right. Next item on the agenda is our favorite part of the night. As I mentioned, nothing against Mr. Hicks, who presents us with financial information, but this tonight is a especially exciting night. So I'd like to also, before we get going, we actually have a couple recognitions that will be part of our staff recognition tonight. I'd like to welcome and acknowledge Peoria City Councilman John Edwards, sitting in the front with his family, daughter to be recognized later, so thank you for being here tonight. And we also have Chief Minter from Peoria. Raise your hand, Chief Minter. There we go. Thank you for being here, too. And then a new Glendale, Chief St. John. I want to wave your hand there. Thank you for being here. So we're very excited to have you here tonight in our annual recognition. So, Mrs. Airy, without further ado, you always bring the best part to us. And welcome back, by the way.
Thank you very much. Good evening, President Bullock, members of the board, Dr. Stifler. As you know, the city of Peoria is one of the first cities in Arizona to appoint a youth liaison to be sworn in on their city council. The addition of a youth ex officio seat on the Peoria City Council is an exciting result of the city's youth master plan, which was adopted in November of 2012. The youth master plan was developed in an effort to involve youth within the community on important issues such as education, safety, and civic engagement. One requirement to apply to sit on the Peoria City Council was to be a member of the Peoria Youth Advisory Board for at least 6 months, be enrolled in grades 10 through 12, and to maintain a 3.0 higher grade point average. The selection process includes collecting and carefully reviewing applications and ultimately participating in an extensive interview process. Once selected, that youth liaison would join the mayor and city council members at the dais to actually weigh in on issues that were discussed during the city council meetings. While this is a non-voting position, other opportunities for the youth liaison to weigh in on important issues include reviewing agendas and allow them to really take part in dialogue with elected officials and many city leaders. We are very proud to announce that on July 12th, the Peoria City Council was able to have 2 students serve on their city council from our school district. I'd like to take just a moment to tell you a little bit about each one of them, and then of course we're going to invite them up and you'll have an opportunity to learn more about them. The first is Caitlin Edwards, a junior at Liberty High School. She's involved in HOSA and allied health, where she gets to shadow doctors in hospitals and receive hands-on learning experience from professionals in that field. Of course, those are some of our very fine CTE programs here in the district. She plans on entering the medical field as a surgeon one day, and as you may know, and as you pointed out, President Bullock, her father serves as a city council member in the city of Peoria, Council Member John Edwards. Caitlin feels that this is an amazing program that allows youth a great opportunity, and she's really enjoyed the experience so far, so you'll look forward to hearing from her. Let's have her stand so we can give her a quick round of applause before we invite her up. Next is Sam Owen, who is a senior at Ironwood High School. He applied for the Youth City Council liaison position because he has always been interested in how our government functions. His hope as a Youth City Council liaison is to help connect the youth of Peoria with the city. In addition to Sam's interest in government, he continues to pursue his passions and be a leader at Ironwood High School. He's in the rigorous International Baccalaureate program and is an active member of the marching band, president of the IB Club, vice president of the FBLA, treasurer of the Spanish Honor Society, and a member of the National Honor Society. So quite an accomplished young man, as you can see. At this time, I'll have Sam stand up so we can give him a big round of applause. And I know we have both family and staff members here from Ironwood and from Liberty High School. I'd like to ask them, because I'm sure they're all just beaming with pride, if they could please stand so we could recognize them for the support they provide to these students. So family and staff, if you would stand. And without any further ado, I'd like to invite Sam and Caitlin to join me up here at the podium. So we'll have you come on up. And of course, I'll turn them over to you, our governing board members, if you have any questions or comments you might like to ask of them.
I think, like the last 3.5 years, we have plenty of questions for you. So are you ready? Now, should the lady go first or should the man go first? This is a very interesting, wow, he backed up right away. Nice. I'd like the lady to go first. I will actually start to my left tonight. Mrs. Doan, questions, comments?
I do. So Caitlin, how do you think you would be able to interest youth in the civic procedure and things that are going on in the city of Peoria?
President Bullock and the board, thank you. I think students are already interested in what's happening in their city. They just don't have a way of figuring out what's happening, and me and Sam serve as the kind of medium between the board and the youth, and we clue them in as to what's going on in their community so they can be involved and they can have a say and they can just put in their comments and questions to us for us to engage back to the city, and we're just, like I said, really the medium for them to have a voice.
So how do you dialogue? Do you have a special Facebook page? Do you have a medium by which they, yeah.
We actually have a lunch with the council member every year, so for the high school students to meet with one of the council members to discuss any problems they have, questions they have with the city, and it is not only the responsibility of us as the liaisons, but as the Youth Advisory Board as a whole, to invite students to feel free to come and, like I said, ask questions, be engaged, really just shoot their questions off at the Peoria City Council to be answered. And we also have sometimes we have a period of, we call it teen takeover on the city accounts, on social media, so on Facebook and all of those accounts, where we have the Youth Advisory Board and the liaisons post what we're doing so that they can get involved, and we can invite them to come out and get involved with us.
Okay, for Sam, do you think that having youth on the council is going to provoke more student interest than, I mean, Caitlin said everybody was interested already. Do you think the interest will heighten? There will be more students that want to get involved?
Well, Ms. Dome and the board, I absolutely believe that having youth represented on the council gives a message off to other youth within the city that, hey, if they can do this, if they can speak their mind, represent the voices and the ideas that we have, then, you know, think of what we can do. And actually, I'm going to relate this to, I'm not sure if you've heard of the Boys State and Girls State programs that are put on by American Legion. I attended that last summer, and while I was there, I was able to realize just how much one person, how much an individual voice can change politics, how much that one person can be influential. So that's one of the goals that Caitlin and I are trying to achieve as members of the council, to try and inspire that idea into the youth.
Well, congratulations to you both, and it is going to be some hard work, but good luck, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
Mrs. Connect.
Yes, I don't have any questions. You answered the questions beautifully. You're both very well spoken. I'm sure that's part of the skill set you bring to the role that you have. I think this is a great example of representative government and how that works. Knowing your constituencies and being able to listen to them and represent them to bodies of authority. So congratulations to that. And there's kind of a theme here tonight about how our cities and our school district work together. And certainly that's one of the huge assets of our organizations, that we have the ability to collaborate and partner with one another and have mutual benefit for that relationship. So thank you for being a shining example.
Mr. Jonigan.
Absolutely. I'll echo Mrs. Connect's comments. Very well spoken. You obviously have been raised properly and wonderfully by your parents, so job well done. Just one quick question for you. Now that you are in the role, what do you have any specific topics or a question or something that you specifically had in the back of your mind that you wanted to bring forward? And when you start attending, what would be your first question or first topic you wanted to have discussed with the council?
Mr. Jonigan and board, one idea that I personally have had, especially from my interests in urban design, urban planning of city development, has kind of led me to the realization that in Peoria and Glendale especially, it seems, there's a lot of areas, a lot of neighborhoods that don't have a sense of community developed. And without that sense of community present within the city, then there's no networks that are built, there's less culture that's developed, there's less pride and interest within the city. So that's an idea that I want to try and inspire within people.
Mr. John, again, and the board. I didn't come to the board exactly with a specific question, but more as of a general question of how can we get the youth really involved in their community? And I think that me and Sam and the board and the city council working with us have really gotten them involved like we wanted to. We have everything from Park Fest to getting them involved in P83 to we're talking about doing public sports with the kids. And I just think we're making great efforts in getting everyone involved like we both wanted.
Well, that's outstanding. I mean, it does start at a young age, and you guys are definitely leading by example, and I commend you for your efforts, and good luck in the future.
Okay, so here's a question. I will argue that state and local politics is actually more important to our day-to-day lives than national politics. National politics, especially right now, gets all the attention, gets all the buzz. But I would argue that, again, what affects you and I and your parents in day-to-day is actually local politics, city council, school board, state, county, actually affects us more than national politics do. Having said that, what do you think is the number one issue facing Peoria and Glendale in this area right now?
All right. Well, building off of my idea that I mentioned to Mr. Jonigan, I believe that with residents of Arizona and within Peoria and Glendale, as a senior, I've been really starting the college search now, and so a lot of talking with my friends of, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? A lot of people I've noticed seem to respond with, out of Arizona or not here. So there seems to be this idea that people don't really want to stay here. They're not really connected with Arizona, with their communities. So if we can build that interest, then we can keep everyone, we can attract more people to Arizona and then develop a better, stronger community from there.
Bullseye. Caitlin?
I've never really thought about it in that aspect, but I couldn't agree more with what Sam said. There's always a strong sense of I can't wait to grow up and get out of Arizona and move to California and live on the beach. And I agree, we need to start building a community that wants to stay here and live in Peoria. And to quote Councilmember John Edwards, Peoria is the
who you
place
do
to
know.
be.
Yes. No, and I make my kids call me sir. It's cool. Don't worry, Councilman Edwards. It's in the family. I say bullseye because that's it. If we can create a dynamic economy, education, and a living environment for families and entrepreneurs and whatnot, people will stay here and not flee. But I'll tell you, the number one reason why you talk to your friends and they want to flee, for lack of a better term, or leave, do you know what that is? Because University of Arizona is 2 hours away, and it's too far to drive. That's why. If it was closer, more people would stay in Arizona. My personal opinion, alumni bear down. So thank you very much. We appreciate you. Please continue, and please be a mentor for the kids that are younger than you, the sophomores and juniors, because they look to you, and I always bring that up. You are now mentors. So carry that torch, do something with it, and you'll be, happy and blessed the rest of your life. Will you do that? All right. Thank you for being here tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Savoy, I'm greatly looking forward to what you're about to talk about.
Well, thank you very much, President Bullock, members of the board, Dr. Stifler. I am too, and I'm glad we have all the officers in blue.
I greatly apologize. Mr. Johnny just reminded me, we will, when we're finished here, will you stick around for pictures? We'll get out of the way, put pictures, because we love to post on our Facebook and our website the success we have in PUSD. Is that okay? And officers as well, when we're done. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's a great point.
It's
Thank
great.
you.
I was just going to say, I'm glad they're all here, just in case we had a huge dispute over the U of A ASU. I can't believe you opened that door.
You can't argue with logic, but as you are, sir.
Well, I already assured Chief Minter that this was not our 2-hour presentation on safety tonight, but rather it was our celebration for all these folks that are here this evening. As you know, every year we take this opportunity to bring together all of our police partners across the district to recognize them and say thank you for that partnership that we have between both police departments in our school district. Because of the joint efforts of Glendale and Peoria elected officials, including our school board, in collaboration with both the Chief of Glendale Police, Chief St. John, as well as Chief Minter from Peoria, we are proud to say that we have a school resource officer on every one of our high school campuses. And that's been true for a number of years. For those of you who are unaware of the dedication put in by these officers on our campuses, they are so much more than just a cop on a campus. I know these folks personally, and I can tell you that they guide and protect our students, as well as serve as a counselor and a mentor every day for the folks on our campuses. They spend countless hours in the classroom serving as a teacher, a role model to students. They also work to oversee the safety of our elementary feeder schools that go into each of our high schools across the district. They bring years and years of law enforcement experience. They have hands-on involvement. They do so much in working with youth to make our campuses better and safer for not only the students, but our staff that is there as well, and our community that interacts with the officers on a daily basis. To Chief St. John and Chief Minter, who've taken time out of their very busy schedules, these guys go, I'm sure, 90 miles an hour every day, to join us this evening, I would just like to extend our sincerest thanks for your ongoing support. A round of applause. We're going to take a few minutes to introduce each of the officers, and as I introduce the school resource officers, we have 7. Please, when you hear your name, join me at the podium. You're going to have to go through that question and answer thing. But I do want to just mention, too, that there are other folks that are here tonight that also play a huge role. We meet the chief, and we meet the SROs, but there's a team that supports all of them. So from the Glendale Police Department, I want to just introduce for a moment, if he could stand, Sergeant Washington, who's the supervisor of the SRO detail in Glendale. Sergeant Washington. The shortest guy in the room. But from Glendale Police Department, I'd like to have join me Officer Maurice Cunningham from Raymond S. Kellis High School. Officer Ryan Enos from Cactus High School, where he also graduated from in 2002, and Officer Gerald Sidnor from Ironwood High School. Let's have a round of applause for these Glendale folks. Now, from the Peoria Police Department, there's a few folks I'd like to introduce to you first before the officers come forward. That's Sergeant Nurbas. He's the direct supervisor of the SRO detail, Sergeant Nurbas. Lieutenant Larson. I'd also like to introduce to you 2 of the deputy, well, before I do the deputy chiefs, Commander Christopherson is also here. He snuck in on me. There he is. 2 of the deputy chiefs that work daily with Chief Minter. We have Deputy Pena here and Deputy Spaulding. If they could please stand. Thank you. From Centennial High School, we have School Resource Officer of the Year last year for the whole country. Officer David Fernandez, if you could join me. Officer Lisa Hale from Liberty High School. Officer Michael Oliver from Sunrise Mountain High School. And Officer Brian Rosen from Peoria High School. Some of these faces I'm sure you recognize. They've been with us for a good number of years, and we certainly appreciate that service. Their expertise in working with our school administrators and practicing lockdown safety procedures ensures that our staff and students are well prepared. These officers are well respected by the students on the campuses that they work at and colleagues, and their presence further creates a feeling of community safety. Last but certainly not least, I would like to recognize our high school administrators that were able to join us this evening. I see Mr. Bauer, Mr. Wooten, Mr. Dunham. I think Mr. Serafin's here from Cactus. I'd like you, the high school administrators, to stand and be recognized as well. I also, yes, Ms. Steele from Centennial. And I appreciate you all being here in your busy schedules as well. So at this time, the officers stand for any questions the board has. And again, thank you, President Bullock, for allowing us this opportunity tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Savoy, officers as well, and staff. Thank you for being here. We know there's 100 other things you could be doing, and we appreciate like early dinner. So thank you. We'll get you out of here soon so you can achieve that goal. I'll start with Mr. Jonigan on my right if you want comments and questions.
Absolutely. First of all, words just can't describe the amount of appreciation that I'm sure all of us have for what you do day in and day out. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for all that you do on our campuses every day. For a question, and I'll let you choose. I'm going to have two questions here, so you, out of the 7, pick 2. Who's first?
What's the question?
I was going to state it, and I thought, All right, my first question is, what is the most rewarding part of your day being on the school campuses each and every day?
Having contact with the kids and truly seeing that what you do makes a difference, because we're able to be with them for an extended period of time, so we actually see a situation from beginning to end. So we see the impact that we make.
Fantastic. Thank you. And the next? Oh, look at that. Volunteers. What is the most challenging aspect of being on the campus day in and day out? What do you face every day that you find to be most challenging?
Probably the fact that just the happy medium, you know, going from law enforcement to the administrative side of it, and, you know, just carrying the whole load of trying to balance everything.
Thank you.
Mrs. Doan, swing over to your side.
Well, I don't really have any questions, but I just want you all to know how grateful I am that you're there for our students. And I know that it has made a lot of difference in some young people's lives, and each one of you has. And our schools would be much poorer without your presence there. And I'm very appreciative to each and every one of you for the work that you do. And I know that sometimes it's hard and can be even heartbreaking, but you stick to it and you do the work and you do it well. And we all do. We appreciate it very much. And the kids and the parents do too. So thank you very much.
Mrs. Connect.
I can't improve on those comments of my colleagues. I also extend my thanks. Thanks for keeping our campuses safe and providing peace of mind for our families and our community. Thank you.
If it's okay, I'm going to stay true to my form and ask some questions. So, okay, those who have asked, Glendale apparently was representing there, right away volunteered, so I guess it's the Peoria folks have to kind of step up to the plate here, except for Officer Hale, because my kids go to Liberty, and I've always asked her questions at the games and stuff like that. How about Peoria High School representing? Yes, the guy in the, people in the back, people in the back of the bus, the bad kids always end up coming to the front. I appreciate that.
Panther Police.
Yes. I'm going to ask you actually the same question because, and this is an obvious statement, and Councilman Edwards can relate to this as well. The 2 top reasons anyone moves to an area, talk about moving here, or staying, or feeling comfortable, is always education, public safety. It's always the top two reasons why people stay or leave an area. Good schools, good safety, and the rest, yeah, recreational activities, that's fine, but those are the two top things. It's very hard to keep that balance going. What do you think is the number one issue that's facing our schools in relation to Peoria and Glendale and the city that you work in?
I think the biggest thing we need to make sure we stay up on is communication.
Okay.
A lot of times people have questions of us of what our major role is, why do we need police officers in schools? And understanding what our connection is. It's not just a safety factor, it's that connection to the community and to make sure these kids are feeling that safe environment, but having a person to connect with. Because a lot of the kids that we do connect with, they don't have that. So that's why they come to us. But having that good communication with the community, with just safety outreach, just general conversation like we do on the road. So many times we're on the street where we got nothing else to do, we'll go to parks and just talk with people and let them see the police and let them understand that they're in a safe environment, they're in a safe community. But having that just general conversation with law enforcement is healthy for everybody. And it keeps us all on the same page, and it keeps everybody just happy. It does.
I appreciate that. Let me ask you a really deep question. It probably could take a whole day, but just off the top of your head, I've always wondered this. Peoria and Glendale span a wide socioeconomic swath, if you will. The towns, depending where you go, there's all different socioeconomic situations. Can our schools, or is there a way for our schools to have more equity across the entire district, hand in hand with law enforcement? Because not only is it equity from an economic point of view, it's also equity from a safety, from a juvenile issue, and that's the stats bear that out. Can we do anything, and what can we do as a school district to bring more equity to the learning environment? Whatever happens at home is good, bad, or indifferent, but our schools need to have equity so everybody leaves and everyone gets that same opportunity, and maybe more importantly, feels really good and safe about coming to their school. How can we balance that amongst the whole district? And again, I know that's a day-long answer, but maybe just one thing, because you experience it every day.
Well, for my experience is for my school, culture.
Okay.
Each school has its own culture. Each neighborhood has its own culture. And I think us understanding each other and understanding what drives each culture in each neighborhood, that right there can make us more equal across the board, because we're going to understand each other. We're not going to have that, I think I'm better than this person over here type aspects or type thought process, but understanding the cultures and where the background comes from. I mean, come from Peoria High School, we have students there who maybe on variances or whatnot, they're there because the family wants them to be there and they want that diploma because that's where the culture is in the neighborhood. And I think understanding that for Peoria's aspect, from northern all the way up to the lake, understanding how we balance each other out can take us a long way.
Okay, I appreciate that. I've always wondered that what can we do more in partnership with your amazing force in both cities? Again, that's the top two things, so I appreciate, that's a good little nugget of wisdom there. I appreciate that. Last question, Officer Fernandez, do not hide in the back. You are not going to escape. With your accolades and recent vaunting to the top of the country, you're not going to escape being seen and heard from, sir. Thank you. Let me talk to you as a parent. Thank you for what you do. All the officers, of course. Thank you for taking the student resource officer to a new high, a new extreme, if you will. Again, I know I've talked to you before, extremely humble, thank you. You see yourself as equal and same as the other officers. I'm sure several of our officers here, at the right combination, could have won that award as well. I think we have a very, very tight group. I ask these questions to our students all the time, as I did the two earlier. What can they do to be mentors? Because they are now on a platform, not a better than, to use that term, not better than, but they're on a platform. They're noticed now. People look to them for ideas of everyone wants to be successful. I don't care where you are in the city, you want to be successful. What is one thing that you can take away from what won you that national award that can help our district succeed?
Oh, wow, President Bullock, board members, and Dr. Stifler. First of all, I appreciate you having us here. Thank you very much. I appreciate the recognition. Why I was chosen over anyone else in this room, I have no idea. One thing that I learned from the award, I was able to go to the national conference and speak with people from all over the country, hear about things that are going on all around the U.S. I realized what a good job the the people right behind me are doing already. The thing that I might take away from this, or what we're doing, is that, none of us are doing this for the accolades, the pat on the back, but it's nice to know that people like what you're doing. And, and we hear it from you. I think we're extremely lucky. I don't think a day goes by when we don't have somebody from the community say thank you, we appreciate what you guys do, stay safe, and so on. Or we have parents from students come in and say, hey, thanks a lot for fill in the blank, and so on. The closer we work together, it's funny that you mentioned the main reason that people move to a community, because it's exactly the same reason my wife and I moved our little girls to Peoria. We looked for low crime rate, great school. And so we moved here. I'm fortunate enough now that I get to work with both. But, the more that we work together, in fact, earlier this year I challenged our 530 freshmen to work as a community. The people on campus, the professionals, want to see you do well. The teachers, the staff members, admin want to see you do well. We want you to do your part. We want you to let us know when something's not right. We want you to lift up the person next to you when things aren't going well. We have a coyote closet, so when people aren't doing well economically, we can help them out. We want to work as a community, so regardless of where you came from, when you're on campus, we're all one community. So I think the better that we do, especially bringing them in as freshmen and sort of getting that culture going, I think the more we push that, the more important that is. I think the better. I mean, that's going to grow throughout the 4 years that they're on campus, and then hopefully later on.
Excellent. And I'm going to take from what you said at the very beginning, because it was so important as a personal challenge. I'm going to accept that challenge to be more appreciative of our officers and express that when I see them out and about, because I do. I'll see them at games, I'll see them at schools, I'll see them even, running to get something to lunch where I live in Peoria. I'll say hi, whatever, but I don't express the thankfulness. And as a parent, I really appreciate it, especially with kids in high school. So I'm going to take your challenge personally and be more appreciative of the officers I meet, so thank you.
Well, I will tell you that I appreciate it. I know that not everybody in the country, there's a lot going on right now, and I feel very lucky for the community that we're in. The people express their gratitude and their support, and I feel very lucky for that.
Good. Well, thank you very much for being here. I know that, again, there's a lot of things going on, and you don't want the attention, as you always say, but we want to give it to you because we want that relationship. Again, we're parents first. Everyone here, parents first. School board, great, but parents first. So thank you for protecting our schools and our kids and our homes, because we live here too. So thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing more from the future.
Don't tell them. Best job in the department.
Good. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're going to do pictures. Is that okay now? Okay, good. All right, we're going to get out of the way if we want to do our students, our city council liaisons, and then with our officers. And we're going to be posting this, so maybe some kind of cool poses would be cool, like a neck, like hold someone in their neck and a taser. Could you do that? I just wanted to know.
Sam and Caitlin, we'll have you come on up to the front.
Tase the CFO, see what happens.
Okay. Okay. Did you get what you needed?
We do the officers. We'd love to get a picture of you to put on our Facebook page as well. Hey, Mrs. Dunsey is going to pose you. Yeah, that's cool. That was kind of neat. Yeah.
Be the tallies in the back.
Okay, we're gonna get a picture of you guys with the youth council liaisons and then without. So, yeah.
Okay, we might need to do a couple of different, yeah.
Maybe have them in cuffs.
Oh, goodness sakes. Yeah. You know what, I can't. Can I have you guys go on that? Yeah, you're gonna have to go hang out with those friends of It's, because it's not even. I don't even know if I can get this out of the way. I have to back like way. Thank you. Okay, so if we could just do the police officers, thank you guys so much. You guys all stay up there. I'm gonna take one more picture. And then, so I'm gonna have you guys scoot in just a little bit. That would be great. Sorry. I need to be like a foot taller. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. I hope so. It was so fun. It was so fun.
Ms. Zeri, is that all the staff? That's the fun of the night. All right, we'll move on to Dr. Stifler, of course. Okay.
Now it is. Thank you. Technicality. President Bullock, members of the board, I'd like to tag on a few recognitions. There's lots of great things happening around the district. I'd like to do a shout out to Mr. Adam Schroyer and the Cactus Robotics team, and they were honored at a Diamondbacks game on September 30th after they were chosen to showcase their robot, which is called the Little Shredder. They were also presented with $2,500 from the Diamondbacks to support their club. In addition, this Saturday, October 15th, the Cobra Commanders robotics team will be competing with Little Shredder for a state championship at Arcadia High School. Congratulations and good luck, Cobra Commanders. Rayleigh Smith from Altaloma Elementary School was invited to the Arizona Cardinals game against the Rams on October 2nd as part of the Fuel Up to Play 60 program. Rayleigh, along with a group of other students from around our state, led the Cardinal players through the tunnel as they were introduced during the pregame announcements. You will see a picture of her in the next edition of our monthly Pulse newsletter. Super excited to say, on Saturday, October 1st was Love Our Schools Day, and we estimate that approximately 2,000 volunteers from a handful of local churches showed up to service more than 100 projects at our schools. I want to say that again, 2,000 volunteers from a handful of churches showed up en masse at our schools to do hundreds of projects. They worked on things such as cleaning, landscaping, and appreciation projects around campus. It was a tremendous community effort that took place on October 1st, and we are extremely grateful for this opportunity, and it looks like it's paying dividends beyond that. And I think on the screen there, it was a nice thing. There you can see Mr. Hicks and myself accepting a check for $717,000 on the district's behalf from APS. It was generated as a result of our energy savings from solar panels, low water systems, and a wide variety of other positive steps we have been taking to be a leader in energy efficiency, and very quickly. That's more than we anticipated. It's more than enough to pay for the upgrades to get us to that point. It was a nice moment, and I didn't think that you would mind if we just jumped in and took the money right there and didn't make them wait to give us the money till tonight.
I was hoping to agendize that for late December.
Yes, sir.
No, of course. And the funny thing, I have a feeling that you've already spoken for the money.
Yes, well, it's all overspoken, honestly. Yes, sir.
Oversubscribed, I believe the good term is there. Well, thank you. That's great news. I mean, I kind of want it, and I love presentations that are coming up, but I kind of want to end it right now because like we're on a high, and that is like great. So should we just close and go home? I know.
Mr. Hicks might be disappointed. He has a great presentation
Right.
plan.
That's right. I don't want to get recalled in the last 3 months here. So, okay. Thank you very much. Board recognitions. We'll start Mrs. Doan to my left. Board recognitions. A chance for board members to talk about anything that's gone on in the past couple of weeks they want to bring to the attention of other board members and the public.
I don't have anything tonight.
Okay. Mrs. Connect.
Thank you, Mr. Bullock. I just want to thank the Liberty Lions for inviting, well, all of us, but I took advantage of the opportunity to sit in their homecoming parade in the car with the 7-year-old Wyatt, who was the Grand Marshal. He is a Sunset Heights student who has overcome great physical challenges in his young life, and he got to be the Grand Marshal. So not only were the high school kids very excited to see him, all the little kids seeing him on the car was very exciting and heartwarming, and I was very pleased to participate.
Yes, I did that last year, and I embarrassed my kids so bad that they wouldn't talk to me for like 2 days because I rode in on the car waving like the prom king, right? Yeah, prom king. I didn't do like this. I went like that, kind of more manly. And my kids saw me in a crowd of like 1,000, and they turned away. They turned bright red, which I thought was fun, and they didn't talk to me for 2 days. They said, "Dad, that was the most embarrassing thing you've ever done." And I promised them that I'd let someone else do it this year. So thank you for representing. I would, of course, if I should have done it. But anyway, I wanted to keep peace at my home. So
Well, if I was embarrassing, nobody hurt my feelings, so I didn't know it.
that's all right. It's the kid syndrome. So thank you for doing that. It was very cool.
It was very fun.
Mr. John again.
I have none tonight, thank you.
Okay. I don't have any as well. That was tonight was the one I was really looking forward to. So thank you for indulging us. Next item on the agenda, request to address a governing board regarding matters not included on the agenda tonight. Mrs. McCarty, do we have any public speakers tonight? Okay, and I'll make the call out once a month as I always do. Please, we'd love to hear from you. Nobody owns every good idea. We would love to hear from the public on things we can improve on, things we're doing good on that we need to keep encouraging, and just ideas and even complaints. We'll take it all. We give everybody 3 minutes to talk about anything you want to try and make this district better, so please take advantage of it. Next item on the agenda is number 7, address agenda and consider adoption or recommend changes. A chance for board members to rearrange the agenda for any specific purpose. Do we have any rearrangements tonight, board members?
Nope.
Okay, all right, the agenda will proceed as posted. Number 8, discussion regarding projected enrollment, the impact on schools, and consideration of approval to formulate a committee to study school boundaries. Mr. Savoy, thank you, sir. Look forward to this.
Thank you, President Bullock, members of the board, Dr. Stifler. The key to that statement was the formation of a committee, and we'll get there shortly, but just a few brief words, just to update the board quickly. As you recall, a year ago in the spring, we came before the board with recommendations from committee work that we conducted in the Liberty High School area and Sunset Heights. In particular, with those two schools, the projections were showing that we would maximize our enrollment and not have room for students. And so we worked diligently with both committees, came up with recommendations from Liberty High School and also recommendations from Sunset Heights, which the board approved in the spring of last year. And so my purpose tonight is to just share with you quickly how things are trending, and at the end of that, seek the board's authorization for us to continue our boundary work in the spring of next year. Because as you see the trends I will share with you tonight, we will run out of space. So that is our purpose for the evening, our objectives. One of the things I wanted to share with you is these are the current enrollments in the schools in our northern sector. But we're particularly paying attention to Liberty High School. These enrollments, I think, are as of October 3rd, 2210 at Liberty High School, and I just checked Sunset Heights again tonight as well, and it is at 1020 today as well. So those enrollments are staying steady. As you recall, Sunset Heights was built for about 1,040, and we made some significant changes there last year with the elimination of open enrollment of students outside of the district, excluding 8th graders and children of employees. So what we projected, I will go to the Sunset slide first, is happening. One of the things that we were anticipating was the opening of the Marquette homes up in that northern sector, and that did happen. They opened for business, accepting contracts for new builds over the Labor Day weekend. It has been our practice, folks who have a contract to build, we have enrolled some of those students currently. And this chart you've seen before in the past. What's significant is the bottom part of the chart. If you look at Sunset Heights, out-of-district enrollment removed is the middle strand that goes across. This chart shows that at the end of this school year, we'll exceed the capacity at Sunset Heights. We will exceed that with our current plan in place. So we know that we will have to address the overcrowding at Sunset Heights. There's no question about it. The question is going to be what happens with the bond election on November 8th, because the work that we do in our community committee in the spring, if the bond allows for the construction of a new elementary school, the boundary discussion, I think, will look different. If the bond election is not approved, then that boundary discussion will look completely different in that scenario. But regardless, we know that for the following school year, next school year, we do not have room for all the students. We'll have to make some adjustments. So that's the Sunset Heights situation. With Liberty High School, we are maintaining, as I mentioned to you earlier, I think the number was 2210. I actually think it was 2220 as of today, actually. But you can see, with no changes made, we will far exceed our capacity by the end of this year. But as you recall, the recommendation from the Liberty High School Community Committee was to work with that number of 2340 and balance how we enroll our students into that school to keep us underneath that threshold. But regardless of that, we know that if we do, even if we take all of our district enrollment out, or if we eliminate all enrollment, we know that at build-out, we're going to be at 2352. This only takes us through May of 18. We know we're going to have overcrowding at Liberty High School. The way the bond would work, again, we're trying to look into a crystal ball, look into the future, and be very prudent and in our analysis, and be prepared for what's going to happen down the road. Our immediate need is to make an adjustment with the elementary school. No question about it. It has to be done by May of this coming year to prepare for the following school year. The high school is a couple-year window, but it's going to take that long, 3 to 4 years by the time, if you were to prepare and have the authority granted by our voters to purchase land, design a school. It's going to take some time, and that time is going to push us outside that window. The last thing I just want to share with you is a map. You've seen this map in the past. It's a very isolated area of the northern sector. It does not show anything west up of the 303, pertaining particularly to Vastancia or Lake Pleasant. But the significance of this map, as you can see, the Marquette homes is that green section that's currently under construction, which is bordering on that blue border. And the anticipated enrollment from there. The Meadows has not broken ground yet, but we know that that's coming. This is the area that we're talking about that has an impact significantly on Sunset Heights. And so really, lastly, what I'm here before the board, in front of the board tonight, is really just to ask for the authorization to begin our work in January of looking at boundary for particularly the elementary school, and make some decisions that we would bring back to the board in the spring of next year. So I'll stop there. You may have questions. Not last, but certainly not least, I do want to thank Miss Wendy Davy and Mr. Harris. I know you know Miss Davy. I think you've met Mr. Harris, but these folks are the brains behind all of the numbers and the analysis and the projections. And I just want you to know how much we appreciate their support and work as we prepare to present this to the board this evening. Their work is incredible.
Thank you, Mr. Savoy, and thank you also for being the brains. Thank you for letting Mr. Savoy be the face.
This may be the last, no.
I'll start with my right this time. Mr. Jonigan, questions, comments?
Where to start? Well, first of all, it's pretty obvious that there's a conversation that's needing to be had one way or the other. And so I like the foreshadowing, the insight to move forward with something in that regards. I guess a question would be, have we had any thought about what kind of makeup these committees would be looking like? What kind of parent participation from these neighborhoods that are being impacted? Maybe some of the surrounding neighborhoods as well, maybe a little further south, if the conversation should say to move things a little south or something of that nature. Have we had any conversation or thought around what makeup of the committee you're looking for?
President Bullock, Member John, again, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. Peoria Unified has followed a process, I believe, that served us well over previous experiences in working with boundary adjustments. To that point, what I mean is, that's why I've listed all of these schools. What we typically do is we will then communicate with the principals of the school and say, you know, we will move forward with creating a boundary committee. And typically what we ask for is 2 to 3 members from each school, parent members. So typically what will happen is 2 to 3 parent members will attend, the administrators will attend, but it really is a community committee. And the community members are the ones who will make the recommendations that we will bring forward to you. I foresee that all of these schools listed would have representation. It's important that they all have a voice. I don't know if they'll all be impacted. That's what the committee will decide. What will happen is we will communicate with the principals, select those parent folks who are willing to provide usually one night a week for a 2 to 3 month period of time. What will happen is K-12 administration will work with Ms. Davy and Mr. Harris. We will make an initial presentation, and then the questions will come from the community committee. We will respond to those questions. We'll dig for more detail. We'll seek out those answers. We'll bring that information back. What happens is you first spend the first couple meetings on education, learning the terminology, showing the big picture, explaining what the problem is, and then you turn the committee loose, so to speak. They work in small groups. They begin to generate what they believe is solution-oriented ideas. Then we share that in whole group. We have that conversation, and we try then to funnel it down to some recommendations that we can wrestle with, and then eventually land, hopefully one recommendation, but I've been involved sometimes where there's a couple. We have community meetings then where we advertise and invite the entire community. So we invite anyone who's interested from any of the neighborhoods that may be impacted. We've held these meetings the last time at Sunrise Mountain High School, Liberty High School, and then it's an open public call where people can provide input, ask questions. We go back again then to the community committee, finalize our recommendations, and then come to the board with those recommendations.
Also, I'm assuming Ms. Davies or someone in her area would be kind of providing the facts on educating the committee on all the different dynamics of what happens if you go down this path, or just kind of providing all the fact-based information for them?
Absolutely. President Bullock, Member John, again, that's absolutely correct. They provide immense detail. They will produce those maps that you were looking at this evening, some with greater detail, with projections and analysis. One of the things that we're working on right now is we just had our 40th day, which I think was October 5th or October 6th. I think it was the 5th. You wait 10 days. Those numbers are then finalized, and then they begin their work from those numbers. That's important because we use those numbers in alignment with all previous years, 40th days, and then they do the magic. But I more or less, myself, Ms. Bridgewater assisted me last time. We facilitate the whole group, but the detail, the expertise is with our research and planning department. Absolutely.
I'll hold for now.
Holding,
Reserve the right to re-question.
revisit.
Yes.
Thank you, cross-examine. Mrs. Doan, questions or comments? Okay, Mrs. Connect.
No, I appreciate the recap of the work that's already been done, and I'm ready to make a motion.
Yeah, for Mrs. Doan and Mr. Johnigan, who weren't here 3 years ago, Mrs. Connect obviously was. That was, and the 3 years before that. And I don't mean it like that. Well, kind of. I didn't mean it like that. But about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, I was just on the board, just started in 2013. We had this process when we had to realign the Vistancy area, the Liberty, before Sunset Heights was open or built at that point. And that committee, the community committee, was vitally important to myself because I've been a parent that whole time, and I had my biases and my understanding from my little neck of the woods. That was it, obviously. And so it was vital to have that community input because it really changed my perception. And it was almost comforting to know that there was a good representation from the entire community to help us make a decision. There were actually two to pick from at that point, but it made it a lot easier to come to some logical conclusion when you mix the facts with the emotion that's obviously there. And we even had an open call to the public, and they were all able to speak. We were there for a couple of hours at Sunrise Mountain and heard everything, which was great. So I think this is a no-brainer. We have to do it because it brings the community. The board can't make a decision without being fully educated by those who are stakeholders. So I would strongly encourage that we would move forward on this. And if there's no other questions or comments, Ms. Connect, I think you wanted to move this.
I move that the board authorize the formation of a committee of community, school, and district representatives to study and recommend school boundary changes to meet the continuing growth in the north sector of PUSD.
Do we have a second?
I will second.
Okay, it's been moved by Ms. Connect, seconded by Mr. Johnigan. A voting item. Board members, please cast your vote. All right, passes 4-0 with one absent. And I feel bad. I was remiss. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate it. Mrs. Pengarelli had a call out for a family issue, so she is not here tonight. So that was my bad. I should announce that at the beginning. And we look forward to seeing her back in 2 weeks. Okay, on with our next item on the agenda. Number 9, discussion consideration of the 2015-2016 annual financial reports. Mr. Hicks, how are you tonight, sir?
Good evening, President Bullock, members of the board, Superintendent Arwin Stifler, staff, community members. Thank you very much for allowing me to present tonight. I am doing great today, so thank you very much for asking.
Goes with our new website.
Oh. Thank you very much. Sorry, small technical difficulties. So first, just like to start off with the AFR, our annual financial report. This is a report that's actually created in conjunction with Arizona Department of Education and our Auditor General of Arizona get together and put together the forms that are required to present our financial activity for the district for that fiscal year. It is, so I'd say the process is very long and cumbersome for districts. So it creates a lot of stress across the state. Although our fiscal year ends on June 30th, we have an encumbrance period to make sure everything's paid, but after that, Ms. Myers and her team spend lots and lots of time looking over, moving things, working on everything to make sure that we are able to present a summary total of everything that the activity, so that we can present it to the board and so that the board can approve that as required by statute by October 15th. The main submission, this is the main submission that the superintendent's annual financial report pulls off of all the district's annual financial reports. The Auditor General has reports that will pull some of the data. It is not, their dollars in the classroom report does not pull solely from this. It actually pulls from multiple reports, but this contributes to it. And so as we have the end of the year, we're working on that. It is important to also remember that the new year started. So Ms. Myers and her team has to actually open up and make sure that activities happen in the new year. So you have across grants are ending, audits are happening, reviews are happening. And this year, at the worst time possible, we actually had a virus that took down our network in a sense, but Ms. Myers was on it and worked with IT to isolate it and get it restored. So I think you only lost about 3 hours of work that had to be redone in that time. So I'd just like to start off, because I don't say a lot of times thank you to our team members that do a lot. I was hopefully trying to create so you could understand there's a lot of stress that goes in, a lot of looking at the hundreds of thousands of transactions that goes on within the district. And thank you to Michelle and her team for doing such a great job in that. So I'm going to just go through and hit a few of the highlights. Yes.
A quick question. You don't have to go back to it. The previous slide said we had to have everything to the Arizona Department of Education by October 15th. Approximately when after that, or is there a hard date after that? I quite honestly forget when that's available to the public for their perusal. I mean, they can see it through us, but when is it made statewide available with all the other districts to compare?
President Bullock, members of the board, technically, the board has to approve it by October 15th, and we have 3 days to submit it to Arizona Department of Education. Their system of how we submit things, as soon as it's submitted, goes through a process. Anybody could look at any district. So I will start pulling down other districts to start look at their AFRs next week in that sense. So the community, the problem is, does the community know exactly where to go? So we post it on our portal, so that on our website, and at the very end of this presentation, I'm going to show you where that is, so you can see all the information that we present and provide to our community. But if anybody wanted to see any districts, you could just go to Arizona Department, look for AFR submissions, search it on their website, and it'll pull it up, and then you select what district or charter you'd like to see, and you'd be able to look at there.
Okay, so if it's the 15th, then by maybe a week after that, just to be able to tell people that ask, maybe by a week after that, they can start going online and comparing and seeing the information.
Technically, President Bullock, members of the board, should be by the 18th, but yes, if you want to be
safe.
build in a
Yeah.
little cushion, you
Okay.
could say by the 18th.
Thank you.
Anybody can go and take a look at that. So first, remember this, I'm trying to hit the summary. We have a report that's attached that's more detailed in that sense, but really just looking at historically what have we looked at. We've looked at our M&O funds, and so this is broken up into our programs. And so we have a regular education program, our special ed program, transportation program, and then the K-3 reading program, or the Move On When Reading, as it's known. And so this is, as required, how we code things, and so this is on the budget to show where we have the expenses. All ended with positive balance. Well, the Move On When Reading had a zero balance, so we spent all of that. I think the most important thing to note here is that it does have the Prop 123 embedded into it. And so Prop 123 was approved after our last budget revision, and so these balances better have all been positive in that sense, that the budget limit was greater than the expenses, because you have that amount that's now rolled into it, that you're increasing the budget amount. But because we have our expenses in the 16-17 year, we have no corresponding expenses to those Prop 123 monies when it came in. So all of those, the amount is being rolled and going into the 16-17 year, and the expenses are happening in the 16-17.
And I'm glad you specified that, because that's the first question I would ask. Why is there a $5 million? Where did that money go that we should have used for something? So
if it's all right, I'm going to talk a little bit more detail when I come to the final budget summary of our balances. So hold those questions if you have. The next is just looking at our capital fund. So this still has the same element. Capital, unrestricted capital, has some Prop 123 rolled into that. So you have that increased budget with no corresponding expense also in it. You have building renewal, just this historically just showing this is the SFB, the School Facilities Board program of identifying. It's actually called the Emergency Building Renewal Grant Program. And that is, as we identify things, we work with our liaison and we submit programs, and we have submitted some in the past. For last year, we received no money for it, and we had no expenses for it. I will tell you, it is a very cumbersome process. And today, we actually had a meeting with the SFB, and this was the second time, I hate to say this, at a public meeting, we've been stood up, no call. We showed there for a half hour, don't show up. 3 weeks ago, stayed for an hour, did not show up, and so we are working through that process. I'm only saying that to highlight the SFB and their processes are very bureaucratic. I know a lot of people within our organization think we are the bureaucratic and create a lot of red tape. They're even more so, and they create a lot of problems. And so we are working through projects that we believe are potentially eligible to receive some funding, but it is a very hard, long process. And the difficulty is, the balance that we have is we do have some bond money that is for building, for basically for some renovations and upkeep. And so do we wait and kids in schools suffer, or do we go straight to our bond? So we do try. It is a balancing act. We do try some of those that we think we can have some time to wait to contact our SFB to get them out, but sometimes there is no ability to wait. I will tell you, for example, we worked with them on a project at Frontier, and it was in excess of 8 or 9 months before we were able to receive the funding and finish that project for something that probably could have taken a month in that sense. So I'm just highlighting that. I know this is a public meeting, so I apologize to mentioning it is factual, but it is difficult working with the SFB in that sense. Adjacent Waste is a fund. We really just use our balances. We try to program where we're at, but our budget was about 1.5 million and spent about 600,000. So we have about $1 million left. We do have future projects for those. We do try to manage that as we go. The number one goal there is this is something that is controlled by the governing board, and if we approve a budget that's greater than our revenues, then we have to levy a tax, and we have yet to levy a tax, and we will not levy a tax for that. So we will work within the fund balance that we have to continue to operate that fund. So we will not do anything that generates and increases our tax because of that. And then we have our bond building fund. We budgeted 28 million, we spent 25. The following presentation I have after this will go into greater detail on our bond building, so I won't say too much about that right now. The next fund is our classroom site fund. So as you probably remember, Prop 301, sorry, I get those confused sometimes. Prop 301 was about 16 years ago that it was approved by our voters that created a funding stream that was to go to our certified staff. And so this is how it is actually broken down. And so every dollar that comes from the state in our distribution for our classroom site fund, 20% of it is allocated to Fund 11, or what we call base salary. 40% goes to performance pay, or Fund 12, and 40% goes to other menu items, Fund 13. Probably one item, a couple of things to note about this, and so once again, we have some good balances rolling. Last year, we only spent about $11 million in this fund, so this is a huge increase of over $3 million in expenses in this, and that is as we have greater balances, they get rolled into the process that identify the following year how much is going to disperse to teachers. This is going to certified staff, not just teachers, but certified staff, and how that goes. One other important piece is just historically, and not everybody remembers this, but just a short 8 years ago, you had we're receiving over $400 per student. It dropped down to about $100. When that time dropped down, a lot of districts, Peoria being one of them, when it had $400. In Fund 13, not 100% of that went to teacher salaries. There was a portion, and I can't remember what amount, but 25% is in my head, but I'm not sure if that's exact. But there was a sizable amount that was allocated to principals for principal discretion for training. So not 100% of it went to salaries. As that went down and the economy took it out, all those amounts were eliminated, and now 100% of this fund is going to salaries and benefits. And so there's no performance or professional development or training that's being done out of this fund. It is really purely just certified salaries and benefits. So here's the carry forward balance, and just to kind of summarize, and so these are some healthy balances, and so I am happy about that. The difficulty is there is Prop 123 money is now embedded into the first two. So I did want to, so one of the things I always try to look at is we're just trying to, hey, we have our annual financial report, what happened? It kind of, we categorize it, the expenses are, a lot of the work is either done at the very front and then look at it at the very end. So the front is the board approving compensation packages and the budget process. That's done probably like a year and a half ago, and now we do the year and then you look at where it ended. And so I look for trends. And so one of the things that we have to do, and like I said, we have to peel out the Prop 123. And so the previous year's carry forward was 2.3 million. And so when we peel out Prop 123, the maintenance and operation carry forward is only $1.6 million. And so that's actually less. So you have a year over year represented expenses pulling out Prop 123 of it's shrinking. Now, there's a couple things that contributed to that. One is that some may not remember. 2 years ago, we had a fund that's called Student Success Funding. That was for allocation of funds to school districts based on student success, so based on the test scores and a number of other areas, socioeconomic status and where they were in the quadrant, the 4 quadrants, calculated a formula and produced an amount of money. That was about $700,000. The district here used that $700,000 and provided hard-to-fill stipends out of it. That lasted for 1 year, and the governor took that funding away. Those hard-to-fill stipends continue, and that funding has come out of our M&O. So if you look at it with just that, you would say, oh, add that back in if that didn't happen, and you would have around a $2.3 million balance. So it's around the same, but I would actually say one of the things that is not unique to Peoria, but those that have high schools and have online, we then get a calculation at the end of the year of your ADM. So where we were producing our revised budgets in May, based on an amount, probably from April. The year continues. We have online, we have concurrency, we have other issues that continues to process. Most of the time it actually goes down. This year it actually went up. So we actually under budgeted in this fund as well that would actually increase that. So although I just told you technically we're down $700,000 in this fund when we peel out 1, 2, 3, but there's a reason. We have the student success left, but we continued those expenses, moved into M&O, but we actually, when you add in the miscalculation of ADM, or the final calculation at ADM, I don't want to say miscalculation, it actually will increase the budget about $1 million. So you then have back to us, with all that happened, pull out 1, 2, 3 of a positive approximately $300,000. Now the additional $1 million is not included in this. So you'll see that at our December revision. So our first meeting in December, as we're revising the budget, we will put that money back in, as the state has already approved us to increase that funding. Unrestricted capital does not have as much. Previously, it was $3 million. If you pull out 1, 2, 3, it's around 2.9. So it actually went down about $100,000. No major activities that happened in that. Classroom site fund was much greater, and now it's going down in that sense. Now, one of the things historically we've shown, and I've shown, is a slide that shows where our capital is, because I still believe capital is one of the biggest issues that we have going forward in the state with Prop 123. We have our override increase, and we'll talk about the override, the next agenda item. One of the issues is capital going forward. So this just highlights, and this is something we've done, or at least last year, showing the bar on the far right, the light blue bar, is what our allocation should be. So without any reductions, you're looking at around $17 million a year for the last 5 years. But the middle bar, the red bar, is the adjusted allocation. And so that is when you pull out the cuts and or when we transferred money over to M&O, what was left between that from our allocation minus anything transferred. You can see where the red bar is, and you can see it's significantly lower. And then historically, we wanted to show you on the far left blue, the darker blue shows here is what our expenses have been over those years. So you can see we're living within the budget, especially if you look at the trend the last few years. You're seeing the allocation adjusted is roughly, if you take a 3-year average, it's roughly right there. 3 years is online. So what we are putting into that fund is what we're spending on that fund. The reality is that we cut a lot of departments in schools' budgets. So schools' budgets have been cut for 2 years in a row now. About 55% of their capital funds have been cut, and departments have been cut about 55% as well. That continues to put strains on the system. That we will probably see future transfers over out of M&O back into capital, which is completely opposite of where it was, say, 10 years ago, where you were taking capital money and transferring it to M&O. For people, you'll probably see the opposite happen going forward if something isn't done about the capital in that sense. The last, just another graph that we've historically either put in or talked about with the board is this is a cash fund. Medicaid in public schools is a fund that we get reimbursed for those activities, certain activities that are special ed services that are provided, that those students are access eligible, and we get reimbursed through access. Those funds come in. It is a cash fund. Traditionally, districts just across the state will build it up. Once it gets built up to something, they'll start spending it down, build up, spend down. Indirect cost fund is similar. These are cash funds that provide a lot of flexibility in how you use them. A lot of this is pulled off of funds from grants, and that we're taking an indirect cost rate that's set by the state and the feds, applying it to the grants, peeling off, put it in, and then a large portions coming from food service. So we have a lot of grants doing a lot of different things. We don't charge directly, say, a business person, a payroll person, but because of their volume and what it's created the need that we have to pay people, more people. And so without charging one person or a person between 30 funds on 40 different codes, you just take a little bit from each one, put it in indirect cut, and then pay people out of indirect cost fund. So this is a trend that was worrying me when I first got here. Almost all of our balances, if you remember 3 years ago, I was very nervous, got in front of the board and said, holy cow, our AFR, everything is going less and less and less and less and less, and we need to stop it. And it was the board that was back there before I started, so this was prior to me starting, made a lot of cuts in a lot of different areas and making a lot of hard decisions that actually stopped those balances going down, down, down. And so we have balances that are growing. Now this one, we actually spent a little bit more, but the balance is still growing. I will tell you in fiscal 17, we've already committed some of our retention stipends. There was another stipend, there's a couple. We've already spent more this year than we did last year between these two funds. So this spent a little under 1.5 million. We've already spent over 1.7 million this year out of those two funds. So we're kind of now into using more of it and not just waiting until we build up large balances. We're using it as we go from those. But that is one of the indicators as we're looking at our AFR, and I was sat here, I was remembering 3 years ago when I think President Borhauer was sitting there, and I was just nervous because I was getting up and saying, hey, I'm very nervous. Our balances are low. The trend is balances continue to go low. We need to do something. And I feel like we're doing it much better. We have a new superintendent comes in. We look at our budget. We look at our AFR, a few months ago, and he says, so what's your carry forward? Tell him it's 2.3. And he's like, well, what percent is that? Oh, that's 1.2%. He's like, oh my gosh, that's a very low number. And so some of it is the context. He's used to having greater carry forwards, moving in, and I would like us to move into that direction where we have more cushion, more contingencies so that we could absorb more things that as they happen, because the world continues to get more chaotic in that sense. So I would just like to finish really quickly just so people could see. Here is our website under our district. You go under districts and budgets, and you can see this is the fiscal 16. You can see what's already put up there is all of our revised budgets. As soon as this is done, we'll post our annual financial report. You could search any year. You go to search 15, and every single one of those fields is populated. You'll be able to see every single report. So if you want to look anything from our district, go to our website, peoriaunified.org, go into our district, go under budgets, and then search for whatever year you want. You could pull up any of the state forms that we have and provide in that sense. So that is hopefully a summary. Not as quick, but hopefully provides a general overview of how we finished the year last year.
Good. Excellent, as always. Thank you, Mr. Hicks, for the detail and the presentation as well. Excuse me. Questions and comments? We'll start on my left. Ms. Doan?
No.
Okay, Ms. Connect?
No, thank you.
Okay, Mr. John again.
Just maybe a suggestion. If this is going to be published as a public document, people can go on and take a look at it. My fear is the first reaction that they're going to see or they're going to have is the same thing that we initially had, was $12 million wasn't spent, was carried forward. Maybe footnotes in there to kind of explaining to avoid a few phone calls or to have the perception that we're hoarding excess cash when we're really not. So maybe just a footnote or something explaining that.
I
when it goes
agree, and
published.
I agree with that. I think that's an excellent suggestion. And because we keep these documents and we review them I review them at times, and I won't remember all of the complex explanations that we heard tonight. So that would be an excellent idea.
Very good.
Thank you.
Other than that, no, I'm good.
I'm glad you brought up the fact of, I remember when I was on the board and you first came on and and this is going to sound mean, but I don't mean it, deer in the headlights, when you had to present to us, we had $1.5 million carry forward. And then the next year we had about $3.5 million. And I want to bring back up, because I hope we never forget the fact, and for board members that weren't here at that time, that our credit rating dropped. And a lot of times we get in arguments with the community and everybody that we don't spend money correctly, we need to live within our budget, and all this stuff we always hear. Most people don't understand finances, let alone what a bond is for that matter, how the financing works, because it's very complicated. But suffice it to say that much like your personal FICO score dropping. When it does, you pay more for your interest. You pay more for your home equity line of credit. You pay more for your credit cards, pay more for your auto loan. That's money out of your pocket. Over the past couple of years, or 2 years ago, we had our credit rating drop by Moody's and Standard & Poor's, which are far more intelligent than myself and most people, and they're more of a deep dive into our finances. They know what's going on because they're trying to rate our ability to sell bonds. And I remember that amount, $80,000 was the number that we talked about of costing us more because of our credit line, or credit score, or credit rating, thank you. Sorry, credit rating dropping. That's significant to know, because if we don't have a cushion, an appropriate cushion, the really smart financial people who monitor and do everything for our bonds and our finances, that spend all day, every day doing this for a living, they look at it and say, you've got $1.5 million, $2 million in cushion on a $200 million budget. That's like you living paycheck to paycheck. Nobody wants to invest in you, and if they do, you're paying twice the credit line or the interest rate that someone else is paying. We can't forget that. That has to be said, especially with a bond coming up, to understand that. Unless we're properly funded, we have to take money out of capital to help cover our maintenance and operations, benefits, salaries, and other expenses, things that break. So if the bond doesn't pass, our credit rating could, it's not a scare tactic, it could drop again, because it's always nice to have a couple $1,000s extra in your bank account because the transmission goes out in your car. You need a new air conditioner for your home, and it's gone in a moment's notice. That's what that cash cushion is. An AC unit goes out, we have a problem with a roof. There is no more school facilities board that's going to cover that. They may give us a couple dollars a year later, but we have to pay for it today. And if we don't have that cash, what do? We dip into our very, very small carry forward, our small bank account. Then the credit reporting agencies look at us and say, you want to sell some bonds, which we still have 2012 bonds available? Gosh, you have no carry forward. You don't have any cushion. What happens if a rainy day happens tomorrow? We're going to have to, again, lower your credit rating. You're going to have to pay more for your bonds, and the whole community ends up funding extra interest rates that we shouldn't have to do. And I really hope, and a great idea, I wish there was a way to communicate that, and a lot less that I'm doing, communicate how important it is to understand that very, very simple yet far-reaching and costly concept. We always talk about, spending too much money. How about getting us to a point where we pay the lowest interest rate on a $40 million bond float that we just did, for example? So
That's good commentary, Mr. Bullock. And I would add, I was having a meeting with a person today who said, why don't we explain that a bond is a line of credit? I think that's something that people can really understand, that we're asking our community for a line of credit, and that when things happen, or we budget, or we make plans, then we tap into that line of credit to pay for what needs to get paid for. I think that really does help the community to understand what we're talking about.
But I'm glad, because I love when you come to the podium and you're smiling, because I know that our cash carry balances are higher, our credit rating is higher, and it's good things. When you come, you go, buckle up, because it's going to cost us more. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
President Bullock, members of the board, if I could just add a little bit to that. So I agree with everything you're saying. Now, I will say there's a balance there. We could increase, spend a lot less, cut some more, build up our reserves, increase our credit rating, help out. But the reality is we're also receiving money for the kids today that are in our system. And so it is easy to stand here and say this at the beginning or at the end of the process and say, we just need to, because we've been on the phone for 3 hours arguing with the credit ratings about why did you borrow money in May? Why do you have this TANs? What are you explaining? Because they understand the CAFRs, they don't understand Arizona because they're either in New York or San Francisco. We have to do all that we can to balance of what's best for our students. And so we do try to keep that in mind as we're going, that we could cut $2-3 million out of our budget, increase it, get over to 4%, and people would love it, our credit rating go up. But at what cost did we just do that? And so we try to do it incrementally. We try to be smart about it. We try to have budget processes in place to spell out everything out as much as possible at the beginning. The reality is we don't know everything every emergency that's going to happen and everything throughout the whole year. But we try to be smart about that because there is a cost, because they want to know how much unrestricted money do you have, how much carry forward, how much contingency. Mm-hmm. The more that you have, the better chance you're going to get a better credit rating that will save the community money. But we want to balance that through the whole process. So just one final comment on it.
No, it's good. Thank you very much, and I hope you come back with a smile again next time, because that always means good news or encouraging news. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda.
There's an
Oh, sorry,
action
action item. Oh, thank you for reminding me. Appreciate it. My hand starts clicking. It's an automatic muscle memory thing. So we need a motion and a second to bring this to a vote. Do I have a motion for item number 9?
I will motion that the board recommend and approve the annual financial reports for fiscal year 2015 and 2016.
I'll second that. Please cast your votes, board members. Okay, passes 4-0 and 1 absent.
Mr. Bullock, I apologize. I have miscalculated how long this agenda was tonight, and I have an obligation that I can't get out of. And since we have passed all of the voting items for this evening, I'm going to have to ask to be excused.
Yes, of course.
All
Thank
right.
you for being here. We understand that.
I do apologize.
That's okay. We'll talk about you when you're gone.
And I know that if I have questions about the information items, the staff is always very accommodating. So thank you very much.
You good? Be safe. Thank you for being here. Number 10, annual bond and override program update, including tax rate and future projects. Mr. Hicks, smile. Yes, okay, good.
President Bullock, members of the board, Superintendent Darwin Stifler, staff, community members, I'm happy to continue to stay up here at the podium to continue with our annual override and bond update. This also has a statutory requirement that districts that have an override or bond proceeds yet to be spent must hold that public meeting every year, somewhere between September 1st and October 31st on an annual basis, to provide information. Governing boards are public meetings, and so this meets that satisfy requirement for that. The first one is just really simple. It just says you got to say how the maintenance and operations override has been spent and will in the future be spent. And so this is the common slide that hopefully everybody's familiar with seeing. What portion is to supplement extracurricular activities and athletics? In 15-16 it was 2.6 million. It'll continue in 17. Support class sizes, PE, nurses, assistant principals, reading intervention, gifted band, music, art is 14.8 million, and that'll stay not just last year, but it continues to be planned for this year. What is new is supporting all staff and all-day kindergarten is new, and that is last year when the override went from 10 to 13%, and so that's about $6.2 million. And so that is implementing that staff supporting was staff increased the salaries of about 2.5% to all staff, and then we had the implementation of all-day kindergarten, which was around 57 teachers hired to produce all-day kindergarten. So now we'll jump over to the annual bond program update. Just as a reminder, we have a $100 million bond that was authorized in 2012, and it does not include any authorization for land or new construction. That was the first time in the history of Peoria that they went out for a bond and did not have one of those two in the bond. So here's the areas that was asked for by the voters and approved, which was $67 million in renovating and improving existing elementary schools, so about $47 million to renovate and improve existing high schools, and $22 million in purchasing public transportation, and $40 million in technology, and about $1.7 million in administrative renovation and improvements. The bond fund to start the year, July 1st last year, had a cash of about $7.7 million. We sold bonds last July, about $26 million, so we had over $33 million available. Spent $25 million, so it puts us at an ending fund balance on June 30th at $8.7 million. So here is then, let's just look at those projects and how much money has been spent through June 30th in each one of those areas. So renovation and improving our existing elementary schools had a budget of $67 million. We've spent $30 million, and so that remains $37 million left in that line. Renovation and improving existing elementary high schools, which I said had around $47 million, almost $48. We've spent 19, almost $20 million on that. Public transportation and campus support vehicles, budget at $22 million, spent over $9 million. Technology, equipment, and infrastructure, had a budget of 40 million and they spent 27 million. We have renovation and improve existing administrative facilities, a budget of 1.7, and we've already spent 2.1. So we've spent more in that line. We have the ability to move 10% within this bond anywhere. So obviously, we're going to have to move 10%. So the 10% of 180 million means we get to move $18 million around. So we will be taking from one of those lines and moving it to cover. But you can see we haven't done that officially yet because our current budget project is the same as our original that was on there. So we will continue to track going forward what the original was, and as that moves to a new budget, you'll see where that money was taken from and moved over to support that administration facilities.
Mr. Hicks, just a point to clarify, you can move 10% around within the bond program itself. You can't take it and use it for, hey, let's do something that the bond was not mentioned in the bond. That's a key point for that is also gets confusion a lot, and from what I hear. Like, well, if you've got that money, move it to somewhere where you really need it. Well, the law specifically states we can't.
President Bullock, members of the board, that's very accurate, and thank you for highlighting that. It still has to stay on this page somewhere, so we'll be moving up to $18 million, but it's going to stay somewhere on this page, so we cannot move it to wherever. We can't go hire people out with it. It has to stay within the bond fund for bond-eligible expenses that were approved by the voters at that time. So one of the requirements is we talk about what was done and what the future is. So wanted to show off a little bit, so with some pictures. So here's the front office at Apache. You could see security. There's a wall that's been put up there where before it was free-flowing, polished concrete. Security gates at a lot of schools have been put up to help with security. There's more polished concrete. That one's also stained throughout the hallways. And so almost every school is getting something. You can see a renovation of the communication system. This has the fire alarm, fencing, and flooring into it. Almost every elementary school received one of those. We also had landscape improvements throughout the district. And so not just landscaping, but we've also done some parking lot renovations, and we've done a lot of HVAC, which is the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems, and our EMS, which is our energy management system. So we've done a ton of work on that. Now, this isn't as large of schools on that, but we've done a ton of work in that sense. We also have new playground structures. Those playgrounds, we've also done some roofing, some restrooms, room renovation. So a lot of times something will fail in a room and we'll go in and just take it out completely, take out the casework, maybe some ceiling grids, something, some carpeting in that sense. So that was just general room renovations, and then security systems across. And you can see once again it's nearly all schools except for one. We also had elementary technology. So they have done a lot of work. We're replacing computers, copiers, doing network upgrades, and doing some cabling projects. And you could see pretty much every elementary school is listed there. When we get to the high school, every single high school was touched by the technology. So once again, the computer, copier, network, cabling, and projector installation happened. One of those happened at every single one of our high schools. So our IT department has been very busy with replacing and putting items out there. Flooring, HVAC, EMS system, landscaping. We've done some bleacher, additional fencing, parking lots, rooms, security systems, and two of our schools are in the middle of getting tennis courts redone. And so you could see all 7 of the high schools there. Renovation and technology at the administration center. We had computer replacement, copier replacement, network upgrades, roof, student vehicles, security systems, support vehicles, at all of our support systems, at all of our sites. So our future plans, we're going to continue with those improvements. Our facility continues, and one of the beauties that Mr. Bullock points out is we actually put this information on every single board item as we have our bond update. If you get to the end of that facilities report, you'll see everything we're doing in a more detailed terms, but we're going to continue with the landscaping, carpeted flooring, painting interior, exterior. We actually have schedules for those. So schools were given, I think it was last week, they were given the plans of what schools were doing in which fiscal years so they could see that plan out over the next few years. Technologies continue, so he still has $13 million. He's going to continue working on their plan. Transportation continues with a few $1 million, about $3 million in upgrades and replacements every single year to continue. We still have about, I think it's around 40 buses that still don't have AC. They are now moved into reserve buses and replacement buses when things go down, but we still have a number of buses that we need to replace. We'll continue that. We actually still have additional need that's beyond that, so we have a lot of decisions that are being made when we hear today, and we get them on a regular basis. Why aren't we doing this? What are we doing this? I need ADA access and a restroom and a bleacher, interior bleachers. What are we doing? The existing bond is not there to do everything. And so right now, we have the plans and going forward on these improvements as we say yes and say, yes, we can do that, because you saw the categories were just to improve high schools, and we haven't spent all that money. For example, if a high school wanted that, we now have to say, what are we now not going to do? So we have greater need than we do have funding in that sense. And so we do have to make those decisions. And sometimes we do make those decisions that we're not going to do that something else is more important, or someplace needs some upgrades. We will look at that, assess it. Normally we're sending Chris over. You need to walk it. TJ's his project manager, or Vaughn will go over there and also walk it, talk with the principal, and assess how important this is and how serious is this to failure. Is it eligible for an SFB request, or are we going to just continue with what we have in the future plans, or not do anything? And so there's a lot to balance in that, but we do have a lot of additional need. So one of the other pieces of information we try to present, we do spread the sale of bonds out over 6 phases. We don't, so we try to spread it out, and the goal of that is, could we have spent it all at once? We couldn't, because back then the economy went down, but you spread it out over many times, because we try to manage the tax rate the best we can, is to be as intrusive or least intrusive to our community and to our taxpayers as possible, while still getting the funds needed to provide the upgrades and manage our assets the best that we possibly can. And so we do spread that over. Capacity has been an issue in the past, so I just wanted to provide a little bit of information. When the economy went down, when the law was different, the legislature released a little bit of that and increased the capacity. And so you can see we actually have the ability, we could sell $80 million right now. It would send our tax rate through the roof, and we would never do that, because that's not right for our community. Actually, I would probably say we don't have the ability to spend that kind of money all at once either. And even if we did, we wouldn't want to, because we also don't want everything failing all at the same time that we did. So let's just say we had 100 buses and we bought 100 all at one time. There's a good chance the majority of all those buses are all going to fail at one time. But if we spread that out, 10 buses a year over 10 years, they're going to start systematically failing a little bit here or there, which allows us a better chance of replacing it. So we try to manage it from multiple areas. Here is just the projected tax rate going forward, and the dark blue is what you can see is what our actual tax rate is going to be with the bonds we've sold. We have $54 million to sell going forward, and that's what we see as our projected tax rate. It does have assessed valuation growth in there. In this assumption, and so you're allowed to assume that a 3% assessed valuation growth. So this could change a little bit if the economy tanks really bad, but we actually have a lot of growth growing up in the north, which increases our assessed valuation and changes property values. Just wanted to give you a heads up of what our projected tax rate is going forward with our bond program. And I will stand for any questions or comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hicks. Start this time my right, Mr. Jonigan.
Excellent overview. Just a point of curiosity, and hopefully not to put you on the spot, but maybe get you some memory going here. What is it that the state provides for all the districts in the state for renovations, for improvement of school buildings and so forth on an annual basis?
President Bullock, members of the board, somewhat of a tricky question. The state provides the additional assistance that can be used for renovations or improvement of that. So it was around about $550 million, but it's been cut about 85%. So you're down to $50, $60 million, I think, on that side. I'm a little bit on my numbers.
for
But
the
that's just
entire
the
year.
additional assistance for
For the entire state, for you.
Districts are cut 85% of our capital funds, and so we're living on 15% of what our capital funds are. There's another wing of that, which is the Arizona School Facilities Board, which can do either, it was created in a three-pronged approach to do a deficiency correction program, to provide new construction, and then to maintain the buildings through a building renewal program so that we don't ever have to get to a point of a deficiency correction program. The deficiency correction program ended, and they spent about $1.2 billion on schools statewide, and so you're really then down to the two. The state does still provide new construction. They approved 2 schools this year, one in Chandler and one in Agua Fria, for funding in new construction, which was the first time in, I believe, 4 years that they've approved any funding. They've actually, the SFB has awarded funding, but there's been no appropriations to approve that for that funding. So now they actually have funding to go. And then the building renewal program, they actually increased in their budget, was approximately $16 million, and they added $31 million to it this year. And so it has about $46 million. That's an emergency building renewal, where before we were provided allocations to maintain our buildings. That has gone down to 0, and it's only on an as-needed emergency basis through a program that you have to apply for, get them out, and go through their process.
It's not really a question, but more of a statement of need for the bond. Based on everything you've just explained, how they've made the cuts, we're down 85%. Just doing quick math on what it looks like we're using straight for just building improvements from the 2012 bond is roughly about $16.5 million a year, if you even spread it out over 6-7 years or whatever. Which, if you look at, if we were asking that of the state, we would be using, what, 1/3 of the total amount that they have budgeted away. So that's, I guess my statement is more about the need for these bonds is, if our need is 16+ million a year, we have no other choices but to get bond-supported funds and financing to maintain our schools. I guess more of just a little statement there. The other comment I'd have is, you said that there was 2 schools that were recently approved. Anything that Peoria could be doing to be looking at applying or seeking those funds for future school builds and so forth?
President Bullock, members of the board, that's a great question. Part of the formula and how you apply for funds for new construction requires that your district be 20% over capacity, meaning that you have 20% in excess. And it's not in one school, it's by district, the entire district. So there's other caveats to that and exemptions and carve-outs. So without wanting to get too detailed, it's just in general, when do we plan on being 20% over our design capacity? So for example, Mr. Savoy mentioned Sunsets at 1,040 is the design capacity. You would have to project and get over 20% over that capacity before you get awarded an approval. And to be honest, the rules have just changed, even though they might officially. If you would project out that you would be, with growth, going to be over capacity 20% 4 years down the road, you would get conceptual approval and then approval 3 years out so that you could plan and get that school. The SFB, in reality, most of it is they like to see that you're actually over capacity. So, for example, Agua Fria got approved this year for a high school, but last year, and it was a fight this year to get the approval, they were off by 1 or 2 kids of that 20% capacity, and they were arguing and fighting and had to get attorneys involved in the process because when did they look at that 20%? Was it the 40th day or 100th day? And between the two difference had a shrinkage of 5 or 6 kids, and that was taking them down under the capacity, and the state was not funding at that point. So it is a very difficult process that I would say we would probably not receive any of that because our district is so large and geographically spread out. It does not provide, and so growth does not come in spread out evenly.
Correct.
Perfect in that sense. It is random, it is over, and it's an economic, from the economy, where things are, what the prices are, and where people are moving to, creates and drives that. And we do have the responsibility that we educate everybody within our boundaries. We don't pick and choose, and so we have to be able to prepare to provide that education to every student living within our district.
Well, not to mention just the impact on the students' learning ability when you get to anywhere close to that kind of overcapacity across the board. So not that we would ever want to get to that point, but other than that, thank you very much. Love the information, and great job.
Thank you. Mrs. Doan, questions or comments?
Thank you, Mr. Hicks.
I'm glad you brought up the point, just real quick comment, glad you brought up the point about the building renewal fund, about $45 million-ish they have in there, because that was actually one of the con statements on our bond, is that there's plenty of money in there. What failed, and I'm glad we brought it up, because that amount in its entirety is only half of what we need to get our schools up to code and spec, but the little secret is that that amount of money has to be split between 250 school districts in Arizona. So when you start doing the math, yeah, they've got some money in there, but even if we split it evenly, and it's very hard to get that money, we get a couple $100,000 total of a, $80 million need we have to bring us up to code. So we have a terrible revenue problem, unfortunately. So thank you for bringing that up.
I would agree.
Good. Any question? All right, thank you very much. That was an information item only. Thank you, Mr. Hicks, and staff. I should always say that. You mentioned Ms. Myers and all her staff, what you do, we appreciate that. We don't always say thank you publicly, but I'm saying it right now from the board. Thank you for the hard work, and also to remember, just last year, that you got an award for excellence in financial reporting for schools from the state. So Peoria continues to shine with our financial prowess. Thank you, by your whole staff, not just you two. Okay.
I do very little.
All right, next item on the agenda, Dr. Stifler, we're going to tee it up for you, sir. Report and discussion on local, state, and federal legislative issues and activities.
President Bullock, members of the board, let's go super extra quick. There's quite a few things going on, and they're not very exciting perhaps, but they do have impact on us. I would say that the state of Arizona is continuing to look at standards, reviewing the input on math and ELA standards. As we heard from some, we have teachers on that. Arizona is also beginning to look at science and social studies standards. It'll be very interesting to watch the science standards. The science standards alongside Common Core, as Common Core was developed, some national next generation science standards were, and as Common Core started to blow up, those science standards were put aside, or at least they were officially put aside, but there are a lot of teachers that like those. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. I'm a history teacher deep down. Social studies standards tend to be the most volatile. I can remember in 1996 that the United States Senate voted 99-1 to not approve the standards. Okay, so it can be there are some politics involved there. Regarding Title I, there's in Washington, D.C., there's some conversations going on that could impact us about the new Title I monies and about what's the difference between support and supplant going forward. And there's nervousness across the country among school districts about the rules becoming even more difficult and the reporting requirements to be able to prove that we're spending the money where we're supposed to spend the money. Whenever we get money, there's strings attached, and then there's strings to prove that you're spending it on the right strings. And so all of those sorts of things are happening. ABEC, the Arizona Business and Education Coalition, is starting to shop a proposal with policymakers in the state. I think I may have mentioned to you before, such as that Texas has a surcharge on drilling of oil. Alaska does. North Dakota has a similar kind of thing for natural gas. Of course, Nevada on gambling. If we can't raise taxes in Arizona, is there something in Arizona that could be dedicated towards K-12 funding? ABEC is starting to shop a proposal that says, how about on the production of energy? That is specifically electricity, that Arizona produces much more electricity than it uses, and it sells it to other states. Is it possible to have a surcharge on that that's not a tax per kilowatt that could be generated and help with the state? So we'll be watching and seeing what happens there. We are due next month to have an answer for what does A through F mean going forward for school districts and for schools. I'm not particularly optimistic that we will get there. A through F sounds very simple and straight up. You can either be complicated on how you report it, or you can be complicated on the formula putting in. And so, for instance, people say, well, I want history to count. Well, then that means we would have to test history at large stakes so that we could do that. Well, we don't want to test more, but we want history to count. Those are the kinds of conversations that are happening at the state level. And is it about growth? Is it about total attainment? Does it matter how fast you can teach kids English who don't know English? What about graduation rate? What about CTE participation? All of those things, policymakers, different groups are reviewing that. We have multiple staff members who are participating in those meetings as well. Superintendent Douglas is, along with the Arizona School Administrators Association, is setting up a series of joint meetings in November, January, and I believe it's March. And so looking forward to that as she's reaching out to superintendents and asking for feedback from the field. And then last on ESSA, the replacement for NCLB, that's rippling across our district right now. We widely anticipate that the rules around highly qualified are going to go away. Every state gets to do that, but they haven't gone away yet. That means, what does it mean for a teacher in the classroom? What do they have to be certified at? What does their credential have to say? So we have people right now who don't meet a standard that we're nearly certain is going to go away, but hasn't gone away yet. It shouldn't be, I don't think it would be hard to imagine that that's causing some friction and some, so I have to go take a test, stress out if I'm going to pass that test for a credential that I'm really not going to need for when they change that. That's very difficult. That's difficult for principals to explain to teachers. It's difficult for teachers to hear. Our goal, I want to say to you all, and we've shared with principals, is we love our teachers. We want to do everything we can to keep them. We also know that we have to follow the law and to do that. And so we are not seeking to drive anybody out. So that's a delicate balance right now as all of these major shifts are happening at the same time. And so where to stand, it's rather like Jell-O. And so here endeth my report.
Thank you, Dr. Stifler. I will call that Around the Legislature in 3 minutes. All right, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda, number 12, request for agenda items for future governing board meetings. Start with Ms. Doan.
I don't have anything tonight.
Okay. Mr. John again, and nothing from myself, so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, number 13, consideration of approval of the consent agenda. Board members, do we want to pull any reports for any recognition or questions? Okay, yeah, we looked through all those during the week, and I didn't see anything that stuck out. Next item on the agenda, number 26. Oh, God, did I just do it? I know, let's Control-Alt-Delete. I'm sorry. Hold on a second. On-hold music would be great right now. There we go. Oh, look, it's an action item. I need a motion and a second to move this to a vote, which I did not pass.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you very much. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Okay, good. Moved and seconded. This is a vote. We do have I took us to the current item. Let's see, go to current item. There sure is not. There's a go to current item, and that's it. Still says under discussion. Okay, obviously my fault. Let's just do a voice vote. Mr. John again?
Yay.
Ms. Doan?
Yes.
3 yeas. Mr. Bullock, yay. Yes, 3 yeas. We do have quorum, so we can approve that. Thank you very much. My apologies. You think I'll get it right. Maybe in January I'll get it right. All right, number 26, Budget Facilities Planning and Construction Report. This was alluded to earlier in one of our presentations about seeing what's going on. Mr. Hicks mentioned this, seeing what's going on in a school near you, how our money is being spent for safety, security, AC, parking lots, all that stuff at a school near you. So again, all this is available only a click away. Move on to the next item on the agenda is number 27, report on upcoming meetings and events. I want to bring one item. There are always exciting things, but one, well, actually two specific. Next week, October 21st, the next week, that puts us at 21st is next Friday, a week from Friday. District patron tour of Centennial High School and Oasis Elementary School. You get to ride around on a bus. It's kind of cool. You get to relive your youth again. Have a school lunch. And my fellow board members, I'd encourage you, if you want to attend, please let Ms. Airy know so we can book you. And all are invited. I'd love to fill up like 3 buses. Would that be neat? I'd like to have that's cool, an overcrowding on a patron tour. That's the challenge. And on November 11th, Veterans Day holiday, we are also having at many of our schools. I know Zuni Hills came last time and talked about it and invited us all out, which I'm going to be going to. Veterans Day celebrations, where they invite veterans over, have a breakfast, and an honorary ceremony. So I would encourage you to visit a school near you to show your support and appreciation for our veterans and their sacrifice. All right, next item on the agenda. Number 28, the draft agenda for our next meeting, which is in 2 weeks, October 27th, and it is a 5 p.m. start. More budget stuff. Mr. Hicks will come with a smile, correct? Excellent. Next item on the agenda, board member opportunity to readdress agenda items. It's a chance for us board members to go back in time and bring up any item and for more discussion or consideration. Mrs. Doan? Mr. Jonigan?
No.
Mr. Bullock? No. All right, next item on the agenda is the time to go home and eat dinner. So do we have a motion and a second to adjourn?
I will motion to adjourn.
All right, moved and seconded once again by Mr. Jonigan and Mrs. Doan. This time I'm guaranteed the buttons will appear to vote. I think Ms. Connect is a yay. I'm pretty confident she wants to go home. Yep. Oh, here, hold on. I'm gonna. There she's like, okay, go. Magically, it's all good. Now, Mrs. Connect, who was kind of on the fence, has decided that she wants to adjourn. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. We appreciate it, and be safe.